Hello dear students, welcome to the third and last part of this video series on freedom. So in the last topic we discussed about the harm principle. We discussed uh, actions which are of self regard and actions which are of other regard. So in this topic we'll discuss about the negative and positive aspects of liberty. So first, negative liberty. So negative liberty seeks to define and defend an area in which the individual would be inviolable. So it talks about and defining and defending an area. So an area of life in which the individual will be inviolable. Inviolable means that you cannot interfere in this aspect of an individual's life. So under negative liberty, we define what area of one person's life needs to be defended from any kind of intrusion. So this is an area in which no external authority can interfere. It is a minimum area that is sacred. So no external authority can interfere in this area of my life. It is a minimum area. Means like you cannot say that all of my life is mine comes under negative liberty. There will be a certain aspect of your life which you can say that is very sacred. It is a sacred part of my life and nobody should interfere with it. Now, when I say the word sacred, you should not associate it with religion only. So no, like when I say sacred, people might say, okay. So religious part of my life can be, no, like the minimum area. Nobody should interfere in my religion. But it is not so. Like various certain kind of religious practices can be problematic. So, for example, the practice of sati pratha. So, under the Hindu religion, at certain point of time, widowed women uh, used to sit on the funeral pyre of their husband and die with them. So that is also a very inhuman kind of practice. So the government passed a law to ban such kind of practice. So you cannot say that my religion tells me to do so and so I will do. So, but still there can be a certain area which is sacred. So it is based on the recognition that human nature and human dignity need an area where a person can act unobstructed. So in order to be humans, we need certain kind of freedom, like freedom to make our own choices. If an external authority keeps making all our choices, then all humans will be very similar. Then we won't have diversity. Everybody will think alike, everybody will behave alike. There will be no new ideas. All people will think the same ideas. People will speak the same language. So then that becomes problematic. Now, what is the matter of discussion here is that how big should this be, how what should we contain. So these are the matters of discussion. So here it might some people might say that in this area one person's education should come, that what kind of education one wants to take should be free from any external constraint. I should be able to decide this is the kind of education I want. Some people might say religious activities, like I discussed earlier. Some people might say lifestyle choices like food and the clothing they wear. Some people might say that their personal hygiene, like if somebody does not want to take a bath for a whole year, then it should be their choice. So, like these are various ideas here. I cannot say that it is well defined, but this is the idea here. Now, this is concerned with explaining the idea of freedom from. So it means freedom from being forced to eat something, or freedom from being stopped from eating something. So like nobody can stop me from doing making my own choices or doing my own will in this certain area. Now, second is positive liberty. So positive liberty is about the area explaining the idea of freedom too. So this is about creating the conditions for my freedom to work. Like I said, a poor person does not have the freedom to go to an IIT, not because they do not have the minds to study in an IIT, but because they cannot afford the tuition fee and all the educational fee to join an IIT. So that is why we need the positive liberty. So the society can create certain conditions under which even the poor people can think of joining and studying in a reputed engineering college. So the tradition of positive liberty can be traced back to these prominent political philosophers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Hegel, Marx, that is Karl Marx, and Mahatma Gandhi, that is Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. These are the few political philosophers who described liberty as positive liberty. So now, this is about the conditions and nature of the relationship between the individual and the society. So this discusses about how the society and the individual interact with each other. So is the society supportive of the individual in all their endeavors, or is the society stopping the individual from engaging in activities which can result in them enjoying their freedoms? Now, we have to enable, the society has to enable positive conditions in material, political, and social domains. Correct? Now, material simply means the financial or money value. So even poor people should get certain kind of financial support. So that is why we have scholarships in the country, so poor children can study. That is why you have schemes like Manrega, where poor people are given 100 days of work and they receive payment for those 100 days. So this is about creating positive conditions in society. So everybody has certain kind of financial resource to help them. That is why we have unemployment benefits. People who are unemployed, they get certain pension from the government because the government is not able to provide them jobs, and that is why the government helps them with pension funds. Then you have political conditions. So what can be a positive political condition? So in that case, you can say that everybody should get the right to vote and participate in elections. Why? Because if a certain class of people do not have the right to vote, then the politicians can easily ignore their demands and their needs. Also, even if those people have the right to vote, if they do not get to participate in the elections, then they do not get a true choice. If they have to choose between two individuals who are both apathetic to their condition, then there is no real choice with them. So that is why we need to give them positive conditions in case of political freedom. Last is social domain of positive liberty. So here, even if somebody has the money and they have political power, if they are not treated fairly or with respect by other individuals, then they might feel inferior. So if somebody keeps talking about their caste or class and won't be friends with them just because they are from a lower caste, or won't provide them accommodation, or won't use the same utensil as them, so they will feel discriminated and they will feel less of a human. So that is why we need to provide such conditions also where everybody can live with dignity. Correct? So even if a rag picker, for example, earns a lot of money, they can take part in elections. But if the society does not treat them with respect, then they will not be able to enjoy their liberty. Even in spite of getting all the money, they will not want to work as a rag picker because we will not respect them. So that is why we need positive liberty. Now, individuals should not be constrained by poverty or unemployment. So like I said, all of us have a lot of hidden potential, and it can come out if we are given the right conditions. So like it says, each one of us is a seed, and if given proper conditions, all of us have the potential to become a huge tree. But if those conditions are not given, then all my potential goes to waste. Now, opportunity to participate in the decision making process, like I said, political freedom. People should be able to take their own decisions or elect people who will take those decisions on their behalf. Third is education, access to education and other associated opportunities. So, for example, if somebody is socially discriminated, then even if they can afford to go to a school, people will not allow them to sit in the same class, or will tell them to sit on the floor, or will tell them to sit outside the classroom. This is what happened to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So, we also need to ensure that such kind of freedom is provided to individuals in the society. So, that is the positive liberty. Now, so this positive liberty recognizes that humans can only be free, can be only be free only in a society, only in a free society. If the society is open-minded and they are ready to accept new ideas, then only an individual can be free. Because even if you have lots of new ideas, if the society does not like them or understand them, then you won't be able to share those ideas. Now, last is freedom of expression. This is the last topic which we are going to discuss. So what does it mean? A lot of people, political philosophers, believe that it belongs to the minimum area of non-interference. So the area of negative liberty. So people should have the freedom to say anything and everything they want, and no external authority should stop them. Correct? But there are various instances when you remember that somebody has demanded that a particular book or a movie or a TV show should be banned. So, do you remember any of those instances? So, pause this video and think about them. I will go ahead and tell you that there are certain examples like Padmavat. Padmavat was a movie by Sanjay Leela Bhansali with Ranveer Singh, Deepika Padukone, and some people were demanding that it should be banned because it was hurting their religious and cultural feelings. So now we have to ask question: how many of these demands were justified? This is something everybody has to make their own mind upon. I cannot tell you if demanding the ban of Padmavat was right or wrong, but you have to think about it. Now, like if the problem here is that these justifiable constraints, they need to be supported by proper procedure and important moral judgments. You cannot just randomly go and say that this particular book or movie hurts my sentiments and that is why it should be banned. There should be a proper procedure. So the movie should be reviewed by a group of people, then it goes to another group, and there should also be a court which should hear the matter if both the parties involved are not satisfied with the various committees. There should also be important moral arguments. So, if there was a movie which would glorify rape or which would glorify child abuse, then of course there will be an important moral argument against it that it might create problems in the society, it might hamper the mental attitudes of the people of the society, and that's why this should be banned. And a proper discussion can be held over it. But if there are no important moral arguments, you just say that okay, I don't like this particular actor, that is why their movie should be banned, or I don't like this particular scene, that is why it should be banned. Then it becomes very arbitrary. Now, society must be willing to bear some kind of inconvenience to protect it from people who want to restrict it. So, the problem here is that there will always be certain kind of people who want to restrict the society for their own benefit. No, like I was saying that politicians don't like it when people start to ask questions. So they will try to ban books which help people ask questions, which tell people to ask questions. They will ban movies which tell people to ask questions. So if society wants to protect itself from such people, society needs to bear such small inconveniences of a particular book or movie which they don't like. Now, Voltaire, he was a popular political philosopher. He said that I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to death your right to say it. So now I want to think about it. Do you agree with such a statement? On my behalf, I can say that it is a very honorable statement because even if I don't like what you say, I will allow you to say it so that I can also say what I want to say. Otherwise, you might stop me from saying what I want, and I will stop you from saying what you want, and then there will be no dialogue in the society, and no new idea can be developed. So once society starts to ban things, it becomes a habit, and then you can go on a banning spree. You will ban this book, you will ban that book, you will ban this movie, that movie. and then people will lose all their freedom of expression. So with this, we have this also the problem that when constraints are backed by organized social, religious, or cultural authority, or by the might of the state, they restrict our freedoms in ways that are difficult to fight against. So if the whole society or a whole religious group is against my idea, then it becomes very difficult to fight because they have the larger numbers. Or even if the government does not like my book or my idea, then it becomes very difficult to fight. I would like you to think about examples for such a thing. But if we willingly or for the sake of pursuing our goals or ambitions accept certain restrictions, our freedom is not similarly limited. So, for example, if I decide that okay, I don't want to put this scene or put this line in my book because it will affect my book, then that is okay because next time I can be free to do so. But if the state makes a law regarding that, then I can never be free to do any of that. So freedom is making your own choices which bring responsibility. So like whatever you do, you should be willing to accept the responsibility of that. We need to be taught responsibility through education. So education is the means through which we can teach people and children to be responsible and to make responsible choices. You have the freedom, but you have to use it very responsibly. Like this popular quote from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. With this, I will end this lecture. Uh, I will see you next time.